Hello everyone, this is Reena Laishram of Kendriya Vidhalaya Imphal number 3, bringing for you a chapter from class 7 Honeycomb, that is The Squirrel, which is a short poem written by Mildred Bowers Armstrong. Before we get into the poem, let's know something about the poetess. The image that you see here is that of Mildred Bowers Armstrong. She is Mildred Bowers Armstrong, who was a children's book author. One of her works was titled Favorite Fairy Tales, and I hope you will like her as she was an author of children. And if you want to read this favorite fairy tales, you can Google it. I hope you will easily find it. She was an American writer. She belonged to the United States of America. She was born in 1901 and passed away in 1984. Passed away means died in 1984. Let's have a look at a picture of the squirrel. This picture tells a lot about the squirrel. First of all, our eyes falls on the tail, which is very attractive to look at. It looks very interesting. I mean, the shape of the tail is very unique, and the tail is very long, and it looks very bushy, very thick, not thin. And the fur, it looks very smooth, very soft, not too touched, very clear, and the eyes are large. Let's discuss more about the squirrel. Squirrels have bushy tails and large eyes. Their fur is soft and silky. The color of squirrel is highly variable between species. The hind limbs are longer than the fore limbs. When jumping or falling, they use their tail for balance. They are not shy of coming out in the daytime. Squirrels have bushy tails. The tails are not thin. Its tail is thick, and the fur of the tail makes it thick and bushy, the hair. And large eyes, not small eyes. Their fur is soft and silky. Their fur is soft and silky. Very smooth, very soft to touch, and silky, lustrous, not dull. It looks very clean, very clear. The color of squirrels is highly variable between species. Squirrels are available in different colors. There are different species, different varieties of squirrels. Available in different. They are found in different colors. We have reddish squirrel, brown squirrel, gray squirrel, and colors in combination. The hind limb means the back limbs are longer than the forelimbs. The forelimbs means the front limbs. When jumping or falling, they use their tail for balance. So their tail is very attractive to look at, but it's not a matter of decoration. Their tail helps a lot, helps their body for balancing in the time of jumping or falling. They are not shy of coming out in the daytime. In the daytime, when people are all around, when other creatures are all around, they don't feel shy to come out. They just love the company of other creatures. They just love the company of even human beings. We will not go further. Let's get started with the poem, The Squirrel. As you see, it is a very short poem, which consists of only 6 lines. I will recite a poem. You listen carefully. He wore a question mark for tail an overcoat of grey. He sat up straight to eat a nut. He liked to tease and play. And if we ran around his tree, he went the other way. I repeat, he wore a question mark for tail, an overcoat of grey. He sat up straight to eat a nut. He liked to tease and play. And if we ran around his tree, he went the other way. So first of all, let's try to pick out the rhyming words in the poem. Let's see, there is no, what to say, let's see the last word in each and every sentence. Tail, grey, nut, play, tree, way. Just see the even lines, grey in the second line, play in the fourth line, and way in the sixth line, in the last line. Grey, play, way. Grey, play, way. These are rhyming words. These are rhyming words. Grey, play, way. You can try saying grey, play, way. So these rhymes give musical effect to the poem, musical effects to the words, like the words have music. These rhyming words give words musical effect. This adds a beauty to the poem. And now let's discuss the verbs in the poem. The poem is all about the description of the squirrel, that particular squirrel that the poet had seen in the garden, that the poet had seen in the garden. It means in the past. That's why the verbs are in the past form. Wore is a past tense of wear. Sat is a past form of sit. Liked is the past form of like, L-I-K-E, like. And rain is a past form of run, R-U-N, run. Went is also a past form of go. We say go, went, gone. And after this, we come to the key words in the poem. Question mark, the mark in the bracket, you see it's a question mark that usually find at the end of most questions. A mark, it is a mark that indicates questions. Overcoat. Overcoat is a long, thick coat worn in cold weather. You might have seen people wearing this kind of coats, especially in the cold regions, in the polar regions, in the cold countries. And here also, in your places, in our places also, you might have seen people wearing this in a very cold day, when the weather becomes too cold, in the time of winter. Overcoat of grey means grey overcoat, simple. And here in the poem, overcoat of grey refers to the grey fur of the squirrel. Tease means make fun of or attempt to provoke a person or animal, to make a person or animal angry in a playful way, just for fun, in a playful way. I'll give an example to understand this better. Suppose you have a lovely sister, lovely little sister. Whenever she says something to your mother, you just imitate her. You just copy her, whatever she says. Then, what you are waiting for? You are waiting for her reaction, how she reacts, how she behaves, okay? It's quite obvious that she will get angry. She may even cry. And that is what you are waiting for, isn't it? That is what you are waiting for, and you feel satisfied. And then you will say, I was teasing you. Okay? Actually, you are teasing her. You got it? I'll give you another example, one more example. Just listen. The children were teasing the cat by pulling its tail. I repeat, the children were teasing the cat by pulling its tail. The children's intention is not to catch the cat, okay? Their intention is just to make the cat angry by pulling its tail. Okay, the cat would hiss at them. This is what they're waiting. The children are waiting. And now let's come to the last keyword, set up. Set up is a past tense of sit up. It means to sit with the back erect, not simply sitting. Sit with the back erect, with the backbone erect, in the upright position, no shoulder drooping. Now let's go back to the poem once again. He wore a question mark for tail. In the first line, he refers to the squirrel that the poet had seen. The poet regards him as a male squirrel, that is why the poet says he. So he refers to the squirrel. He wore a question mark for tail. This question mark, it is a mark that we used at the end of most questions that you see in the textbooks, that you see in your notebooks. Okay? But how can this squirrel wear this question mark for tail? It is impossible. When we first hear it, we just think, how can squirrel wear this question mark as tail? And the answer is, the poet just want to say that the shape of the tail looks like a question mark. Looks like a question mark. To the poet, the tail looks like a question mark. The curve in the tail of the squirrel, the band shape in the tail of the squirrel, the way it bends, the way it curves, looks like a question mark. But here the poet that doesn't say, isn't it? The poet doesn't say that the tail of the squirrel looks like a question mark. If he writes like this, it will not look like a poem. Okay? This is the beauty of poem. How does the poet represent his idea here in the poem? Okay? The way he represents, it is the beauty of the poem. He is not saying directly. Okay? The reader has to think to get the meaning. Just the words used by the poet is very simple. You know what is he, you know what is war, you know what is a, you know what is question mark, for, tell, you know each and every word. But still you are in confusion because the poet doesn't say his idea here, not directly. But still the words are simple. This is the beauty of the poem. And it's very easy to get the idea also, to get the meaning correctly if we read a poem with a lot of interest. You just give attention how the poet, how the writer plays with the words. And now let's come to the second line. An overcoat of grey. An overcoat of grey. How come this overcoat grey overcoat comes in this poem? Grey, this color refers to, what do you think? It is the squirrel that the poet had seen is grey in color. And overcoat then, overcoat comes again. What is overcoat? You have seen in the previous slide the overcoat, the image of overcoat. But how that overcoat relates with this squirrel again? An overcoat of grey, I will give the answer. It means the fur, the grey fur, the fur which is grey in color, the fur was all over the body and it is very thick. The fur was very thick, and it looks like the squirrel is wearing an overcoat of gray. It means gray overcoat. To the poet, the squirrel appears like he was wearing a gray overcoat. To you, you can describe that if you describe a squirrel, you can write a poem about a squirrel, the same squirrel, okay, the squirrel in a different way, in your own words. You can see the tail for the squirrel in a different way. An overcoat of gray, the poet sees the fur of the squirrel like the squirrel is wearing overcoat of gray overcoat. You can say in different way. It is to the poet only. The squirrel appears in this way to the poet only. And then let's come to this, the third line. He sat up straight to eat a nut. He sat up straight to eat a nut. Sat up straight, it means to sit attentively. Sat up straight means to sit straight. To sit in an upright position. No bending, no shoulder drooping, no slouched. No shoulder drooping, no bending, to sit up straight. In the classroom, when teachers say, sit straight, it means that the teachers feel that you are sitting lazily. You are not looking smart in the class. At that time, the teachers say, sit straight or sit up. It means to sit attentively. Here the poet is talking about the physical structure, sit up straight, okay? Structure of the squirrel when the squirrel eats nuts. While the squirrel was eating nut, the squirrel was sitting in upright position attentively. What may be the meaning then? It means that the squirrel lacks nut so much. That is why in the time of eating, he was sitting attentively. Let's go to next line. He liked to tease and play, and if he ran around his tree, he went the other way. He went the other way. The squirrel liked to tease and play. The squirrel is a fun-loving creature, is a happy creature who likes to stay happily. The squirrel is a playful creature who likes to play with other creatures, who likes to play with human beings. And let us see, when the poet goes near the squirrel to the garden, near the squirrel, how does the squirrel behave with the poet? And if we ran around his tree, now we come to know that if it is a poet alone, he can say, and if I ran around his tree, but it is not I. And in the fifth line, we come to know that the poet was not alone. The poet was with his friends. So we refers to the poet and his friends. The squirrel was teasing them, and the squirrel wants them to run after him, to run after the squirrel, to chase him. Okay? And the poet and his friends did in that way. They were chasing the squirrel, they were running after the squirrel, and when the squirrel comes to know that they are coming near, the poet and his friends were coming near, the squirrel will change the direction. The squirrel will change the direction. He would run in the opposite direction, in the other way. He will keep on doing like this until the human beings, okay, until they get tired. This is how the squirrel play with them. He liked to tease them. This is all about the poem. And now let's revise what we have learned about the poem, the explanation of the poem. In the poem, the poet Mildred Bowers Armstrong describes a squirrel that he observed in the garden. To the poet, the squirrel appeared wearing a grey overcoat. He sat in an upright position. When he was eating a nut, he still looked like a question mark, and because of its bent shaft, the happy and lively squirrel loved to play with the poet and her friends, and whenever they ran around his tree, he would run to the other side of the tree. The poet tells us about the nature of the squirrel, that it is innocently naughty and likes to tease anyone who comes near him. That's all about the meaning of the poem, and now let's go to figures of speech. Figures of speech, it means figurative language. These kind of figures that we use in a time of speech, not only in a time of speech, in a time of writing also. And it is this figurative language is quite different from literal language. We'll discuss this later. And these figures of speech, figurative language, are used to draw mentally, to convey message or idea much quicker, effectively, and vividly, clearly. And this add interest and fun to poem, story, or speech. Let's take an example. Her hands are cold. In sentence number 1, it says, her hands are cold. And sentence number 2, her hands are as cold as ice. Sentence number 1, her hands are cold. We get one idea that her hands are not warm. Her hands are not warm. They are cold. We just get the idea. Only getting the idea. We listened. We get the idea. But to the second, let's go to the second again. Her hands are as cold as ice. Her hands are as cold as ice. We get the idea that her hands are not warm, they are cold. At the same time, we can feel how cold her hands are. We can feel, because we know what is ice. We have touched the ice, we have felt the coldness of the ice, and in that way we can feel how cold her hands would be. After listening, these things comes in our mind too, and we can feel the coldness in her hand. What the writer wants to say, what the speaker wants to say, it becomes more effective when the listener feels this. And I will give you one more example, how it is different from the literal language. It says, I will give 2 sentences. It is raining heavily outside. This is the first example. It is raining heavily outside. And the second sentence, it is raining cats and dogs. Or it is raining outside cats and dogs. Cats and dogs, animals. The first one, it is raining outside heavily. We know that, the rain is very, it's raining heavily, not the light rain. We just get the idea. And then let's come to the second example again. It is raining outside cats and dogs. First, when we hear that, it is raining, it says, but at the same time, cats and dogs comes after. What is this? It is raining outside and cats and dogs are falling from the sky. It is a literal meaning. But the meaning is something else. It's not that cats and dogs are falling from the sky. It is not that. It is something else. What is that then? Cats and dogs, raining cats and dogs means heavily. It is an example of figurative language, figure of speech. The literal meaning is different. Despite the literal meaning, there is something meaning inside. Okay? So, the figurative language and literal language difference, and we can discuss later. So, now we'll discuss what are the most common figures of speech. The first one is simile, second one metaphor, the third one personification, the fourth one hyperbole, and the fifth one alliteration. Simile and metaphor. Simile and metaphor, these figures of speech are used in a time of comparison between two things, and that things unlike, not the same things, two unlike things. And in the case of simile, they use as or like in comparison. Let's read. Comparison between two unlike things commonly by using as or like. These two things have one thing in common. So for simile, this figure of speech is used when two things are compared, two unlike things are compared, and they use the word as, like. These are the common words used in case of simile, as and like. There are more words also, but these are used commonly. And these two things have one thing in common. The things that we are going to compare have one thing at least one thing in common. Our soldiers are as brave as lions. Our soldiers are as brave as lions. Two things are being compared here. One is our soldiers and another is lions. Okay? And what is a common thing here? The bravery of soldiers, the bravery of lions. Bravery is common here. And as brave as is a simile. It is a figure of speech. It's an example of figure of speech. And metaphor, comparing two different things by saying one thing as the other. No comparison word like, as, or like. There is no comparison words. Same thing. Metaphor also comparison between two different things. Different things. Two unlike things, two different things are same. Huh? Unlike, different are same. Two different things. And in the case of metaphor, they don't use comparison words like as or like. They don't use these words. And they are saying directly. Like our soldiers are lions. Our soldiers are lions. One should not think that the lions are serving as soldiers. The meaning is not that. The meaning is something else. The meaning is our soldiers, lions are known for bravery. They are even called as the king of jungles. Is a king of jungle, isn't it? Lions are known for the bravery. So our soldiers are lions. It means that why our soldiers are called lions? Because our soldiers are brave. The point of comparison is not mentioned here. In the case of simile, the point of comparison, bravery, is mentioned here. But in the case of metaphor, the point of comparison is not mentioning. They say directly, our soldiers are lions. The point of comparison is implied inside. It's embedded inside. Only the the reader or the listener has to get the meaning. But the point of comparison is not mentioned in the case of metaphor. Let us take one more example. Her cheek is as red as rose. Her cheek is as red as rose. And the second point is, her cheek is rose. The first thing, it's very simple. Her cheek is red as rose, means her cheek is red. You know, the listener or the reader just know that her cheek is red. But in the second case, her cheek is rose. First, we listen carefully. Her cheek is rose. What is this? One rose is pasted over the cheek or what? We just think for the first time. But it is not that. The point of comparison is the color. It is red. The rose is red, and her cheek also becomes red, and her cheek becomes red as rose. And we say directly that her cheek is rose. It is an example of metaphor. They don't use any comparison words like as or like. And the next Figures of speech is personification. Personification. Human characteristics like crying, laughing, what humans do, singing, dancing, eating, feeling hungry, thirsty, smiling, lacks, desires, these are the human characteristics. If these human characteristics are given to non-human things, the technique used by the writer is called personification. Personification. Let's discuss one example. The trees dance in the breeze. Breeze is a cold wind, a gentle wind. And we like breeze in the time of summer. It refreshes our body and mind. We enjoy breeze, isn't it? So the trees also enjoy. The trees dance in the breeze. We see the movement of the trees. We see the movement of the leaves of the tree. We see the movement of the branches of the tree. The trees moves when the wind comes. It's very plain, it's very simple. It doesn't sound poetic, okay? It is very simple, very simple as I have said. When we say the trees dance in the breeze, the trees dance in the breeze. Dance means a movement. But when the writer uses dance, it becomes more effective. It adds the reader, find interest here in this way of presenting words. The readers can see the picture, the mental picture of the trees dancing in the breeze. Okay? The reader finds a lot of interest in this kind of presentation of words. And now let's come to hyperbole. Hyperbole means exaggerated overstatement. To speak strongly more than what the reality is. I will give an example. I have told you the same thing 1,000 times. I have told you the same thing 1,000 times. I have told you something, okay, the same thing. Not one time, maybe 2 times, 3 times, many times. But telling you the same thing 1,000 times is impossible. It is impossible. But still, no one argues that what you say is wrong. No one argues. When someone finds a line that I have told you the same thing 1,000 times, no one argue. No one can argue. You have not told me 1,000 times. I was counting. You said only 3-4 times. No one can say that. It is a figure of speech. The writer or the speaker wants to give emphasis he wants to give emphasis on he has told you or I have told you the same thing many times. Here I just want to give emphasis that I have told you this thing many times. This is called hyperbole, overstatement. Okay? More than what the reality is. Or sometimes when we say, I'm feeling tired, I'm going to sleep for 2 days. I'm going to sleep for 2 days. I'm feeling very much tired, but no one can sleep the whole 2 days. I just want to say that I'm feeling so much tired that, okay, I want to give emphasis on how much I feel tired. It is not that I'm going to sleep in reality for 2 whole days. So this is an example of personification. Sorry, this is an example of hyperbole. Excuse me. This is an example of hyperbole. Now, let's come to the next figure of speech, alliteration. Just listen how we pronounce this word, alliteration. Alliteration is nothing but it's a repetition of same initial consonant sound in a phrase or sentence. Consonant sound, you have learned what is consonant sound in the earlier classes. Initial means beginning. In some phrases, in some sentence, you will come across some words comes repeatedly. The initial, The beginning sound of the words are same and usually consonant sound. Like k sound come together, like t sound come together in a phrase or in a sentence. It is called alliteration. Let's take an example to understand it better. Go and gather the green leaves on the grass. Go and gather the green leaves on the grass. Go and gather the green leaves on the grass. When you listen this sentence, you can hear a lot of g sound. But you have to keep in your mind that it is not always necessary that this g sound will come together, means some word may come in between also. It is not always necessary that words with this g sound should be always next to next. It is not always necessary. Some words may also come in between. But if this sound, g sound, comes repeatedly 2-3 times, or 2-3 or more than times, we call it alliteration. It gives musical effect. It gives musical effect to the words. And let's go to the second example. Little Larry likes licking the lollipop. Little Larry likes licking the lollipop. What sounds come repeatedly in the sentence? Can you say? It is the L sound. L in little, L in Larry, L in likes, L in licking, L in lolly. These L sounds comes together. This is a perfect example of alliteration. So now let's discuss what figure of speech we find in the poem. The poem being too short, we cannot find a lot of figures of speech, but I'm just selecting the easiest one that you can understand easily from the poem. Metaphor, a question mark for tail. The poem says he wore a question mark for tail. He doesn't say that the squirrel has a tail which looks like a question mark. Okay, it is an example of metaphor. He directly says he wore a question mark for tail, and his meaning is that the tail of the squirrel looks like a question mark. So this is an example of metaphor, and we have discussed metaphor. What is metaphor? Alliteration. In the poem, you say what to say? Sit up straight, set up straight, set up straight. This s sound in set and s sound in straight. S sound comes together. It is called alliteration. And he liked to tease and play. Sorry, this tease should be T-E-A-S-E. Sorry for that. To tease and play. To tease. T in to and t in tease. These t sounds come together. It is another example for alliteration. Now let's come to the textual questions. Let's discuss the textual questions so that you can give the answer to these questions accurately. Why does the poet say the squirrel wore a question mark for tail? We have discussed a lot, enough. Draw a squirrel or find a picture of a squirrel sitting on the ground. And how would you describe its tail? You have to draw a squirrel, or if you don't want to draw, you just find a picture of a squirrel sitting on the ground and just look the tail of the squirrel and describe its tail in your own words. The poet says it looks like a question mark, and if you tell me to say, I can say it looks like a stick with a hook at the top, with a curve at the top. You also describe the tail of the squirrel that you draw or that you find in the picture in a different way, not like the poet and not like me. And the second question, do we usually say that an animal wears a tail? What do we say? I'll give a hint for you. An elephant has broad ears, or we say elephants have broad ears. We don't say elephants wear broad ears. You think it right? And a third one, he liked to tease and play. Who is teasing whom and how? He liked to tease and play. It is in the fourth line of the poem. He liked to tease and play. Who is teasing whom and how? The poet was teasing the squirrel? No. The poet's friends were teasing the squirrel? No. Then who is teasing whom and how? In what way? How does, what to say, means how is the teasing done? You have to explain who is teasing whom and how. Working with the language, now let's discuss some language items, some grammar parts. Sit up, it is to sit with the back erect in a good posture, to sit in upright position. As an example, the teacher told the children to sit up and not slouched. Not slouch. Slouch means to sit lazily, not attentively, not smart. And the second is sit around, and third one is sit together. In all the three verbs, sit is common. But the word following sit is different. Here, one element of sit comes with one element of, and the second sit comes with around, and in the third sit comes with another element together with the same verb sit. But still, they are verbs. Sit is a verb. Already sit is a verb. Okay? Sit up is another verb. Sit around is another verb. And sit together is another verb. These are called phrasal verbs. Verbs in the form of phrase. These are the phrasal verbs of sit. There are many phrasal verbs of sit, but for today, we will discuss only three. So sit up we have discussed, and we have discussed a lot in the explanation of the poem also. And number two, sit around. Sit around means to spend time in a lazy way doing nothing important. To sit around means it's not that you keep on sitting by moving around. It's not that. To spend time in a lazy way doing nothing important. As an example, he sits around all day instead of working. He sits around all day instead of working. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have any work, or he has done a lot of work and he's taking rest. It is not like that. He has a lot of works to do, but still he doesn't do. He is so lazy that he spends the time sitting. Number three, sit together. To sit with other people. Sit together means to sit with other people, not alone, to sit with other people. Simple. As an example, let's sit together in a meeting. Now, let's go back. Let's go to the exercises. These exercises are for you. Let's try to give answers to these questions accurately. What is compared with grey overcoat? We have discussed. What was a squirrel doing on the ground? What does it do when the poet and his friends go around? Use the following phrasal verbs in your own sentence. We have discussed these phrasal verbs with examples. Okay. Now what you're going to do, you have to make sentence with these phrasal verbs in your own words. So with this, we come to the end of the chapter, and thank you for being with me.